astronauts, it's me, Brandy, and welcome back to Astro-Tarot Research. So today I wanted to hop on really quick and talk to you guys about the great conjunction happening on December 21st of 2020. So the great conjunction involves the planets of Jupiter and Saturn, and this time they will be coming together in the western sign of Aquarius in the nakshatra of Uttara Ahsadha. So the reason this is so important is for several reasons. Reason number one is this is the first time since March 4th, 1224 that Jupiter and Saturn will be observable in the sky for this conjunction. And the last time that they even appeared this closely together was 1623. And I would even say another reason that this becomes important is because this is the first time in over 615 years that Jupiter and Saturn have conjoined in the sign of Aquarius. The last time that happened was 1405. So according to astrologer Rachel Lang, on December 21st, these planets will be 0.1 degrees apart, making them extremely close and very, very impactful. This conjunction is known as the Christmas star or the Star of Bethlehem, as this may have been the astrological phenomenon which the Magi witnessed and which brought them obviously towards Jesus. In the 1400s, this conjunction signaled the start of the Renaissance period, which ushered in new scientific discoveries, art, and government. Constantine the 11th, who was born with this conjunction, became the last Byzantine ruler. His reign ending meant the end of the Roman Empire, which had ruled for over 1,000 years. With the fall of Constantinople, this expanded the Ottoman Empire, who developed the first opinion polls, as well as created innovations in art and astronomy. They created the first observatory, and in general, the Ottoman Empire was more ethically, religious, and culturally diverse in population, but not without heavy discrimination. The second to last time this conjunction happened in Aquarius was March 20th, 1345, which some scholars say was around the exact time the Black Plague was created. The Black Plague was estimated to have killed over 75 to 200 million people, making it the deadliest pandemic in history. The past two times this conjunction happened in the sign of Aquarius, it was in the nakshatra of dhanistha. Dhanistha can be associated with themes of beautification, arts for art's sakes, military strategy, or just general strategy, gender and racial and ethnic issues involving discrimination and equality or roles. And if you look back in history, you can see during the Black Plague, oftentimes they blamed witches, gypsies, and Jewish people for the cause of the plague and disease. After the plague was done and after the Black Plague sort of settled down, women were actually more limited in power, if not worse off than they started. However, you did have a lot of working class men experiencing more freedom and being more valued as people, as the demand for workers was very high, given that most people were dead. And we also had a more focus on life on earth rather than the spiritual realm. You can see this even reflected in the Renaissance, as well as there's this shift towards art concerning perfection of the human form. And I did mention dhanistha had to do with beautification. And after the Black Death, feudalism became irrelevant and lands became more available to survivors. So there was this major shift in social and economical and political changes, which usually happens with Jupiter conjunct Saturn. And in general, when Jupiter conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, there's obviously going to be a global shift which affects mass groups of people. Interestingly enough, the word quarantine came from this period in history, coming from the Italian word quarantino, meaning 40, which was the amount of days a foreigner would have to spend in isolation when coming to a new city. In general, Saturn and Jupiter conjunction I've seen in people's charts like Bruce Lee, Richard Pryor, Jessica Alba, and Constantine the 11th. And what this often signals is them moving away from belief systems from which they were raised in and taking on a new belief system. Majority of the time, this was opting for a more spiritual belief system, but not always. The conjunction, especially because it is happening in Uttara Ahsadha, will usher in a new wave of government and laws. Ideally, Uttara Ahsadha pushes for a system of laws to be set in place which involves more equal treatment of everyone. You can see this throughout history with famous Uttara Ahsadha native Martin Luther King, who pushed back against authority, demanding what was owed by the government to its people, as he stated in his I Have a Dream speech. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men, as well as white men, will be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as our citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given its colored people a bad check, a check that has come back marked insufficient funds. Martin Luther King goes on to say, "We have come to cash this check, a check that will give us demand the riches of freedom and security of justice." So this is in the era in which we will demand justice from people in power, people in authority, and to demand those who have committed corrupt actions in the past to pay for those failings or to readjust those failings. People will rebel against authority, rebel against the system. The dominant belief system will change culturally. The social structure will change. We will push for more independence globally, and I say that because Uttara Ahsadha is a sun-ruled nakshatra, and in general, sun-ruled nakshatras push for independence. There will be new laws, and solar nakshatras deal with defining morality and defining what's fair, and in doing so, they obviously define what is bad. So this can also create a little bit of a shift in isolation for certain groups of people, but we'll see how that shift changes. Any abuse in power will be challenged. Obviously, there will be political unrest, issues regarding church and state. More people will follow their passions rather than so opting to work for someone else and building up their passions. More people will begin sort of labeling and defining others, as sun-ruled nakshatras like to categorize and label events, people, groups. So you have this sort of pushing towards saying, oh, I'm this type of person, I'm that type of person. So the increase in sort of like labeling will go on. New traditionals will be formed, more competitiveness, a move towards more spirituality or spiritual beliefs. More than likely, people will shift towards doing what they personally believe is right, rather so than following society's morale. There should be a rise in self-esteem globally, or at least a push towards a rise in self-esteem globally. This will be about creating sort of new educational opportunities for people, or even just changing the educational system in general, especially with Uranus and Taurus. This is also about unifying others, usually unifying others through frustration, or just through righteous sort of anger. Other countries will sort of expand their territory, because a lot of sun-ruled nakshatras have to do with sort of like taking what's yours, or even not taking what's yours. Maybe you even feel like it belongs to you. So there's a sense of entitlement that happens when you get through a lot of the sun-ruled nakshatras. And personally, people will sort of migrate to new places for opportunities, which is a very common theme around sun-ruled nakshatra people. Even in their own lives, you'll see a lot of people who were sun-ruled end up at some point in their life changing their location in order to find a better job. As well as there'll be technological and innovations, especially when it comes to sustainable energy or anything having to do with bettering the environment or humanity overall, a lot more going green. So that's generally what this great conjunction will bring. People will overall sort of try to push for their own sense of personal happiness for themselves and their loved ones. It's a little bit different than dhanistha, where the focus is not really on so much on like the warfare and the art and the sort of like I guess there's scientific technological innovations. There will be some here, but it's just a little bit different. It's not as warlike. Not to say that this nakshatra will not go to war, okay? Just want to put that out there. I think even the person who made, it was either the atomic bomb had this, or they made some sort of like mass nuclear bomb had Uttara Ahsadha. So it's not like they're against war in general. That is what I wanted to say, and I will see you guys next time. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and it didn't sound a little bit too awkward or anything like that. I prefer the scripts, because if I just start talking, I start rambling on like I do right now. So let me end this video. I'll see you next time. Ofa.